Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 now, Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in. It's a busy morning, getting busier as the day goes on. 8:05, we'll speak with Victoria Cobb of the Family Foundation. And at 8:35, the chairman of the Republican Committee, Michael Whatley. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. And joining us right now is Bill Donohue. Bill Donohue of the Catholic League fame, president of that august organization. And regardless of our ability to agree or disagree with certain statements from the Vicar of Christ, it is always a sad and solemn occasion when a pope passes on. Mr. Donohue, thanks for joining us to discuss this occasion.
Well, thank you, Larry and Julie. I'm pleased to be on with you.
You know, I know that you've had some disagreements with some of the public statements. Again, no change to the church's dogma at all. You wouldn't know that by listening to, not that the dogma can be changed by a pope, by the way, but the ignorance in the mainstream media thinks that, you know, with a magic wand, a pope can just, gay marriage is fine now. But Bill, I've said over the course of the last 24 hours that we've had it sort of easy for two popes in a row with John Paul II and Benedict. That's not typical in the history of the pontificate. And was Francis, a challenging pope for us because we had it so good with the other two?
Well, I think everything you said is absolutely accurate, beginning with the media misreporting these things. The ignorance is stunning, and you're right. You don't change dogma. Quite frankly, I think Pope Francis wrestled with the fact that he wanted to make more changes, but he ran up against a brick wall. It's called scripture and tradition.
Yeah, thank you.
So he can only go so far,
if it weren't for that darn scripture and tradition.
And it really is true, though. I mean, it's one thing to be welcoming to people feel marginalized. That's all fine and good.
Of course.
It's another thing to be justifying behavior. And that's when it gets very slippery here now, because the Pope Francis, in fairness to him, he said, I wasn't justifying behavior. But when you're blessing same-sex couples, it does leave the impression that that's what you're doing. So but you're right. Also, his predecessors. Look, first of all, Benedict XVI and John Paul II were two intellectual, towering figures.
Yes.
They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm not saying Pope Francis was not a smart man. I'm simply saying that he was not in that category whatsoever. He wasn't even close.
Which
and
is
neither
no criticism, by the way. It's like telling a scientist, listen,
right.
Yeah, you're really smart, but you're no Einstein,
Exactly. That's right, yeah. But I think his legacy is mixed. Clearly, he reached out to a lot of people. I think that non-Catholics probably really appreciated him in many respects more than Catholics, because he came across as being very genuine. I've made the comment with a lot of interviews yesterday that, and some people may misinterpret this, there are some parallels, believe it or not, between Trump and Pope Francis. On the plus side, we liked their authenticity. They were unscripted. We liked the idea of being off the cuff, being blunt. But in both cases, they got themselves into a lot of trouble. And in the case with Pope Francis, he would go overseas. He would do wonderful things and greeting the people and blessing them. And then on the papal plane, he got hijacked by some people who really had an agenda, some of these journalists. And unfortunately, he played into it. He was warned many times, be very careful, and he wouldn't listen to anybody. And they constantly were walking it back the next day and the day after what he said. So impulsiveness can be a real problem.
Julie, we've got breaking news from the Vatican. Apparently, the body of Pope Francis is turning over before it's even in the grave, as Bill Donohue compares him favorably to Donald Trump. I think that. Go ahead, Julie.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the conclave, which has started. Pope Francis appointed 83 of the 137 eligible cardinal electors. So most people think, gosh, are we going to get another moderate? Are we going to get a leftist? So what are your thoughts on that? Again, given that 83 of the cardinals were appointed by Francis.
Well, I know that the logical conclusion is, therefore, we're going to get Francis II, a clone of Francis. I don't know about that, and I'll tell you why. It was a credit to Pope Francis that he wanted to appoint people to the College of Cardinals who were from the so-called peripheries, from the faraway places that everybody seems to neglect. That's all to the good. Now, it may come back to haunt the left, because those people tend to be very orthodox. They don't see themselves as agents of change. So when they go in to vote, they may come to the conclusion that while they may appreciate much of what Pope Francis did, it's time to push the pendulum back to the center. And that would mean somebody a little bit more traditional and not somebody just like him.
You have any front runners or hopes and dreams and aspirations? Not for yourself, of course, but for one of the – it's going to be a cardinal. I think it's been – I believe – I could be wrong on this. I believe it's over 700 years since a non-cardinal has been appointed pope. So
I think it's about the 14th century.
One in the conclave. Who do you like?
Well, I tell you what, I just hope that they give a very serious look to Africa and don't look to Europe. The Europeans, particularly the Germans, but not exclusively, they've just gone off on the secular cliff. But the Africans, you have a lot of very brilliant men there who are extremely orthodox. There's a few of them on the left, but most of them tend to be rather orthodox. And I think as a traditionalist myself, I would like to see someone more in line like Benedict and JP too, because I do think the pendulum needs to move back. There's too much concern about, railing against air conditioning in the name of climate control and things of that nature. They don't have any air conditioning over there in the Vatican? I didn't know that. And this idea of, look, if you want to help the poor, listen, I worked in Spanish Harlem. I help make the illiterate literate, and I love the black and Puerto Rican kids I work with, and we drill them in good Catholic way. But I also understand, and I used to debate Christopher Hitchens, God knows how many times, the famous atheist who hated Mother Teresa. I said, the reason you hate her is because you don't like the idea that this diminutive nun from Albania has done more for the poor, which you helped create with your socialism, than anything that socialism has ever done. I think with Pope Francis, I'm glad that he likes to reach out to the poor. I don't think he ever understood. Capitalism is the generator of economic freedom. It's not of oppression. If you want oppression, choose socialism. And yet he had an affinity for socialism. Indeed, growing up, he said that the person who influenced him the most in terms of his political ideas was Esther Balestrino. She was an atheist communist.
That's amazing. One last thing here, real fast, Bill Donohue of the Catholic League. The two largest representations in the conclave are cardinals from Italy, as is typical, but number two is America. Is it possible we could have an American pope?
I don't think so. Listen, I know Cardinal Raymond Burke, and I love him. I think he's great.
Yeah.
But I do think that if they were to choose Burke, it would be looked upon as a rebuke to Francis because the two of them had clashed. So I don't see that happening, and I don't see any of the others being chosen. So, no, I think the Italians are back in play. I'll grant you that, but there's also there are several others there, and I don't know. Like I said, I think you're going to see Cardinal Cupich out of Chicago will be pushing more for someone like Francis, and you're going to see Cardinal Burke out of St. Louis pushing more for someone like Benedict and JP too. So you're going to see a competition within the American cardinalship.
I love it. For those of us who enjoy watching the Vatican and getting into this intrigue that sort of transcends time, really, this is a fascinating event we're about to embark upon, and I'm looking forward to it. Bill Donohue, we'll check back with you as the conclave develops. Thank you so much.
Right. It looks like the voting is going to start May the 6th.
Wow. All right. Game on. I love Bill. The Italians are back in play. No more polls.
My Italian friends will like that.
We'd be very happy to move away from Latin America for a spell. No offense to our friends down south, but, you had your shot. It was a rough road. All right. Thank you,
You guys
Bill.
are the best.